Romania has just made a move that is shaking international headlines. A $300 million rail project that was supposed to connect regions, boost infrastructure, and bring in massive investment has now been officially cancelled. And the company behind it? None other than China. This isn't just another failed contract. This is a geopolitical chess move, a tug-of-war between East and West, where infrastructure, influence, and billions of dollars are at stake. For months, China had been preparing to carry out one of its largest rail investments in Eastern Europe. It was meant to be part of Beijing's larger Belt and Road ambitions, a project that would spread Chinese technology and business deep into the heart of Europe. But Romania has now slammed the brakes. The $300 million rail deal is gone. Terminated. The reason? Romanian officials claim issues ranging from technical disputes, compliance failures, and concerns over transparency. But behind the curtain, it seems to be much bigger than that. Many analysts believe this isn't just about a contract, it's about geopolitics. It's about Europe's increasing wariness of Chinese investment and the growing push to reduce dependency on Beijing in critical infrastructure projects. What makes the situation even more intense is what came after. China, refusing to accept the decision, immediately prepared to file an appeal. But Romania isn't backing down. Not only did it cancel the project, but now it is actively fighting to block China from even submitting that appeal. That's right, Romania wants to silence the comeback before it even begins. This raises the question, why such an aggressive stance? If this were purely about a business dispute, wouldn't the natural path be to allow legal appeals and arbitration? Instead, Romania seems determined to close the door completely, shutting down any chance for China to re-enter the negotiation. Some experts argue that Romania's decision is heavily influenced by its European Union and NATO ties. For years, the EU has been tightening its stance on Chinese investments, especially in sectors that touch transport, energy, and digital infrastructure. The fear is clear: whoever builds the railways, the roads, or the ports controls not just trade but influence. And allowing China to dominate these sectors in Eastern Europe could shift the balance of power. Romania, positioned at a strategic crossroads between East and West, seems to be sending a very direct message. It is choosing its alliances carefully. And in this case, China is not part of that future. For China, this is a blow not just financially but symbolically. A $300 million project being cancelled in a European country adds fuel to a growing narrative that Beijing's Belt and Road projects are facing resistance. Countries from Africa to Europe have raised concerns over debt, transparency, and long-term consequences of Chinese-funded infrastructure. And now, Romania has joined the list of nations pulling back. But what does this mean for the future? Will Romania face legal challenges from Chinese companies determined to push through? Could this spark diplomatic tension between Bucharest and Beijing? And most importantly, will this decision inspire other European nations to cancel or block Chinese infrastructure investments? One thing is certain: this is no longer just about trains. This is about influence. This is about control of the future of Europe's infrastructure. And as Romania makes its move, the world is watching closely to see how China responds. The battle isn't over yet, but for now Romania has made a statement. When it comes to its railways and its future, China is out of the picture. Romania's move to cancel this massive rail project did not come out of nowhere. In fact, the seeds of this decision were planted years ago. Romania, like many other nations in Eastern Europe, once welcomed Chinese investment with open arms. Beijing presented itself as a reliable partner ready to pour billions into roads, railways, ports, and energy projects. For a country seeking modernization and rapid development, the offer was tempting. But as the years went on, doubts began to grow. Reports started surfacing about Chinese companies cutting corners, costs ballooning far beyond initial estimates, and contracts being signed under vague and often questionable terms. The promises of world-class infrastructure sometimes turned into unfinished projects, disputes over financing, and a heavy dependence on Beijing's political goodwill. Romania's leaders could not ignore the warning signs. Across Europe, countries like Greece, Hungary, and Serbia had already tied themselves closely to Chinese-funded projects. But others, like Lithuania, Poland, and the Czech Republic, began to distance themselves, citing concerns over national security and economic sovereignty. Romania appears to have taken the same path, showing that it is no longer willing to gamble its future on Beijing's promises. Still, the scale of this cancellation is massive. We are talking about $300 million, a sum that could have significantly boosted Romania's railway infrastructure. This isn't just a minor disagreement, this is a full stop on a flagship project. And the fact that Romania is now working to prevent China from even submitting an appeal shows how determined the government is to close this chapter completely. From Beijing's perspective, the cancellation looks like a betrayal. China has spent decades trying to build its influence in Eastern Europe through what's known as the 17+1 cooperation format, a platform where Beijing sought to deepen ties with Central and Eastern European countries. Romania was once a participant in that framework. But in recent years, the enthusiasm has faded. Some nations have pulled out entirely, while others, like Romania, are clearly rethinking their role. At the same time, pressure from Brussels and Washington has been mounting. The European Union has warned its member states about the risks of strategic dependence on China, especially in sectors tied to transportation and energy. NATO too has highlighted the potential security risks of allowing Beijing's technology and companies to dominate critical infrastructure. For Romania, a proud NATO member located in a highly strategic region, aligning with Western allies is more than just politics, it is survival. With tensions rising in Eastern Europe, with conflicts at the borders, and with the global balance of power shifting, Romania knows it must choose its partners carefully. And by cancelling this rail project, it has made its choice clear. Yet, the drama does not end there. China's companies are not known for walking away quietly. Appeals lawsuits and diplomatic pressure are all likely to follow. The attempt by Romania to block the appeal itself is a bold legal maneuver. It suggests that officials fear a long and complicated arbitration battle, one that could drag on for years and potentially cost the country even more money. By cutting off the appeal process early, Romania wants to protect itself from being locked into endless legal disputes. But Beijing is unlikely to let this go unchallenged. For China, every cancelled project under the Belt and Road Initiative threatens to weaken its global credibility. If too many countries start backing away, the entire strategy of building global influence through infrastructure could falter. That's why what's happening in Romania is about much more than trains, it's about the future of China's global ambitions. And this raises a critical question: could Romania's cancellation be the start of a domino effect? Could other Eastern European nations, watching closely, decide to follow the same path? If that happens, Beijing's dream of extending its influence deep into Europe through railways and highways could face its toughest challenge yet. For now, Romania stands firm. But the pressure will only grow from here. Will China retaliate economically? Will it try to use diplomatic leverage to force Romania back into talks? Or will it quietly step away, regroup, and attempt to come back elsewhere? The world is waiting to see what China's next move will be. And as this unfolds, one thing becomes increasingly clear: this is no longer a simple contract dispute. This is a geopolitical showdown, and Romania has just drawn a line in the sand. Around the world, this $300 million cancellation in Romania is being watched closely. Because what looks like a local infrastructure dispute is actually part of a much larger global struggle, a struggle between China's Belt and Road Initiative and the Western alliance that seeks to limit Beijing's rise. For over a decade, China has been aggressively financing railways, ports, highways, and even digital infrastructure across Asia, Africa, and Europe. The strategy is simple: use money, loans, and construction expertise to tie nations into long-term partnerships with Beijing. Once those projects are completed, China gains not just trade routes but political influence. That's why they call it the New Silk Road, a modern version of the ancient trade network designed to stretch from China all the way into Europe. But the dream of a seamless Chinese-led global infrastructure empire is colliding with reality. Countries that once rushed to sign billion-dollar deals are now questioning the true cost. In Africa, nations like Zambia and Kenya have struggled with debts linked to Chinese loans. In Asia, Malaysia and Sri Lanka have pulled back from certain projects after realizing the long-term consequences. And now, in Europe, Romania has stepped into the spotlight with a bold cancellation that directly challenges Beijing's expansion strategy. The timing of this is critical. Europe, already cautious about China's growing influence, has been tightening regulations on foreign investments, especially in sensitive industries. The European Commission has warned member states about allowing Beijing to dominate rail, energy, or telecommunications. And at the same time, the United States has been quietly encouraging its allies to block or cancel Chinese projects that might pose risks in the future. Romania's decision fits perfectly into this new pattern. The government in Bucharest is not just cancelling a deal, it's making a statement that aligns with the West's long-term strategy. And by trying to block China's appeal, Romania is sending an unmistakable message: the door is closed and there's no way back. This creates a dangerous precedent for China. If one European country can cancel and successfully block an appeal, others might be emboldened to do the same. Countries like Poland, Bulgaria, and even Hungary, once enthusiastic participants in Beijing's infrastructure promises, may begin to question whether they should walk away as well. For Beijing, that's a nightmare scenario. Billions of dollars have already been pledged and invested across Europe. Every cancellation damages not only China's financial stake but also its reputation as a reliable global partner. But there's another layer to this story: geopolitical tension. Romania sits in one of the most strategic regions of Europe. It's close to the Black Sea, it borders Ukraine, and it plays a crucial role in NATO's security structure. Any infrastructure project here isn't just about transport, it's about military mobility, logistics, and potential influence in a region that is critical to both NATO and the EU. If China had successfully built a major rail project in Romania, it would have gained a foothold in a highly sensitive location. And perhaps that's one of the real reasons why Romania's allies quietly pressured it to cancel. From China's perspective, losing this project means losing influence at the exact point where East and West collide. From Romania's perspective, cancelling the deal may have meant sacrificing short-term money but protecting long-term sovereignty. And yet, the drama continues. China is not a country that accepts defeat easily. If its companies are blocked from appealing in Romania, Beijing could retaliate through other means: trade restrictions, diplomatic pushback, or using its influence in other countries to pressure Romania indirectly. We have seen this pattern before. When Lithuania strengthened ties with Taiwan, China unleashed a wave of economic retaliation. Could Romania face a similar fate for saying no to Beijing? The situation is unpredictable, but one thing is certain: this $300 million cancellation has become a symbol. It's no longer about rails and trains. It's about whether smaller nations can resist China's economic power, and whether the West can successfully counter Beijing's expansion into Europe. This is why Romania's decision is echoing so loudly worldwide. In Washington, policymakers are likely celebrating this move as a win against Chinese influence. In Brussels, EU officials are treating it as proof that Europe is finally standing firm. And in Beijing, the cancellation is being studied carefully because it could signal a turning point in China's global strategy. The question now is, will Romania stand strong under pressure? Or will the weight of China's diplomatic and economic power eventually force it back to the negotiating table? China's setback in Romania might look like one project lost, but in reality, it could trigger ripple effects across continents. Because once one country proves that it can cancel a massive Chinese infrastructure deal and stand firm against retaliation, others may follow. Take Africa, for example. China has spent the last 2 decades pouring money into railways, highways, and ports across the continent. From Ethiopia's Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway to Kenya's Standard Gauge Railway, Beijing's footprint is everywhere. But alongside the impressive new infrastructure, a darker story has emerged: ballooning debts, hidden contract clauses, and allegations of corruption. Several African governments are already under pressure from citizens demanding accountability. If Romania, a European Union and NATO member, can cancel a $300 million Chinese deal, leaders in Africa might begin questioning whether they too can push back against Beijing without disastrous consequences. Then there's Asia. Nations like Malaysia and Pakistan have already scaled back or renegotiated major belt and road projects after realizing that costs were spiraling out of control. Malaysia, under Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, once suspended a multi-billion-dollar Chinese rail project, claiming it was unnecessary and too expensive. Pakistan has struggled with its China-Pakistan economic corridor, facing financial strain and mounting criticism over Beijing's dominance in its energy sector. Romania's bold move could add fuel to this global skepticism, showing that the age of blindly signing Chinese contracts may be coming to an end. And in Europe, the stakes are even higher. The Belt and Road was never just about economics, it was about China carving out influence in the very heart of the West. Ports in Greece, motorways in Serbia, railways in Hungary. Beijing sought to create a network that tied Eastern Europe directly to China, bypassing traditional Western channels. For a while, it seemed to be working. But Romania's rejection is a signal flare to the rest of the continent. China's grip is not unbreakable. Of course, Beijing won't take this lying down. If Romania slams the door on Chinese companies, Beijing may try to open another one elsewhere. China has a history of using divide-and-conquer strategies in Europe, offering generous deals to countries with weaker economies in hopes of pulling them away from EU alignment. Hungary, for instance, has often acted as China's strongest ally inside the EU, welcoming investments while ignoring Brussels' warnings. Will China now double down on countries like Hungary and Serbia to compensate for Romania's rejection? That possibility is very real. At the same time, we must consider the retaliation factor. China has often used trade as a weapon. When Australia called for an investigation into the origins of COVID-19, Beijing hit back with trade restrictions on wine, coal, and barley. When Lithuania deepened ties with Taiwan, China unleashed an economic storm that crippled Lithuanian exports. Could Romania face similar retaliation for daring to block Chinese influence? It's possible. Beijing could impose restrictions on Romanian agricultural exports or limit access to Chinese markets. But Romania may already be prepared for this, relying more heavily on its EU and NATO partners for support. The bigger picture here is one of shifting global alliances. On one side, you have China using infrastructure and investment as tools of influence. On the other side, you have the United States and Europe pushing back and offering alternatives. The G7, for example, launched the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, a project designed to rival China's Belt and Road by funding sustainable infrastructure around the world. Romania's cancellation fits neatly into this narrative, a clear rejection of Beijing in favor of alignment with Western allies. And yet, beneath all the politics and strategy, there lies a simple truth: infrastructure is power. Whoever builds the railways, ports, and digital networks of the future will shape the global balance of power. Romania has made its decision. But will other nations follow? That's the question Beijing fears most. Because if Romania sparks a domino effect, if country after country begins rethinking Chinese projects, then the Belt and Road could face its most serious crisis since its inception. For China, that would mean not just financial losses, but a blow to its very vision of a China-centered global order. And so, the world watches. Beijing recalculates. Romania holds its ground. The story is not over, not even close. In fact, it may just be beginning. As the dust settles, one truth is clear: Romania's decision to cancel a $300 million rail project with China and block its appeal is far more than a national choice. It is a signal to the world. A signal that even in the face of economic temptation, sovereignty and strategic security still matter. This moment will echo beyond Romania's borders. Other nations are watching carefully, weighing their own relationships with Beijing, questioning whether the promises of Chinese investment are worth the price of long-term dependency. And for China, this rejection is not just a contract lost. It is a warning that its Belt and Road dream may be facing resistance like never before. The battle between China's global expansion and the West's defensive push has entered a new phase. Infrastructure has become the new battleground, and every cancelled project, every blocked deal, is a move on this geopolitical chessboard. Romania has made its move. It has chosen sovereignty, transparency, and alignment with its Western allies over quick money and uncertain promises. Whether this sparks a domino effect across Europe and beyond remains to be seen, but one thing is undeniable: this is a turning point. And so, as the world looks to the future, the question is not just about railways or infrastructure. The real question is, who will build the foundations of the 21st century? Will it be China, with its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative? Or will it be the West, uniting to offer alternatives and defend its influence? The answer is still unfolding. But for now, Romania has spoken. And in the high-stakes game of global power, this $300 million decision may prove to be worth far more than its price tag. Because sometimes, the true cost of a deal isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in freedom, influence, and the direction of history itself.